And the beauty in this practice and really in just recognizing the heart power that lives in us all is that we are so infinitely powerful when we're plugged into our hearts.
Lady Balls Radio, a celebration of women bold enough to live their truth and inspiration for others to do the same. Lady Ballers, welcome to another show. Our guest today is Jessie May Wolfe, the founder and awesome bright light behind the Heartrise Movement. She's had a passion for people before she could even talk, and that calling to connect us has led her to work in all corners of the globe. She's launched creative endeavors, successful startups, including a creative design firm and a women's contemporary collection sold in over 400 retail stores. She's also built a transformational practice as a life coach, inspirational speaker, meditation guide, and Reiki master, impacting endless souls around the world. We are so lucky to have her with us today to talk more about something we can all use right now, how to keep our heart soft, how to keep our heart open when the tides are tense. And they have been a little tense lately. So I could go on and on. There's so many more accolades we could talk about, but oh my gosh, we'll never get into the show. Welcome, Jessie May. I am so happy to have you here.
Oh, Connie, it's my pleasure. Thank you for that warm and juicy intro, and it's just a joy to be with you here.
Oh, well, likewise, it is such a gift to have you here with us today. So before we get more into our main topic, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story. You had such a successful career, as an entrepreneur, which is obviously still going on today, but you kind of made that shift into more exclusively a mindfulness approach. So could you tell us a little bit more about your story and how that kind of came about?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. I will say that to start, I've always been a creative sort of free spirit, and that I guess has always informed or inspired my way, and, an entrepreneurial spirit at that as well, which very much tends to go along with being creative.
Right.
And so I was always very curious, and, as a young kid, I loved to experiment and explore, and was always very adventurous and really getting into sort of creative entrepreneurial endeavors even when I was younger. And so that led into exploring many different, faculties and disciplines when I was in university. And I really explored many different arenas from, I studied communications. I also studied film, and then I got into photography and design and marketing and graphics, and that led me into clothing. And so over those years, I had many different careers, if you will, as well as really more so my own businesses, particularly the design agency and then the clothing line. So those really were passion projects that grew into successful businesses, and in so doing, finding myself along the way and really enjoying very much the experience of working with others, as well as really the creative sort of adventure, being able to create and connect along the way. So I will say that, that sort of creative vision was really the pulse all along the way. And I guess what happened for me and how it shifted gears was really for years, really, I was about 6 or so years where I had my clothing line and was really deeply immersed in it, but found myself getting very disenchanted by the industry and, really only sort of, no sooner would I finish one collection that I would be pumping out the next. And so that creative spirit started to feel a bit lost in translation, and I was starting to really feel more like I was churning it out and less inspired and invigorated. But all along, really enjoying that connectivity piece and loving working with others and connecting with others. So that kind of helped to inform, getting more involved in coaching and sort of the mindfulness piece and that healing aspect of how to connect with others and what that might look like. So I had noticed that the sort of coaching and consulting and all of that had really been a big part as I was doing consulting and creative consulting and coaching sort of along the way throughout my whole life, really, when in retrospect. And so that shifted gears and really developing a coaching discipline, which then grew into, leading workshops and speaking, and it just kind of evolved. And the greatest part of the whole journey for me has been really deeply listening to a knowing within. And it's really what I practice what I preach, if you will. And sometimes it's, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly, where I would learn in an instant, or I would learn in a fall, if you will. And I think that, as long as we're willing to grow through life, it's always there for us to really experience and to learn from, so long as we're willing. So it's been a wild and beautiful, colorful journey, messy at times, but I've certainly evolved into where I am, and it's led me to work with beautiful mentors and teachers and guides, and have incredible students and peers and contemporaries and community that I've cultivated and grown and built into what is now the Heartrise Movement. And it's, Heartrise is a method and a meditation and a practice and a movement, and I can share more about that, but it's certainly been informed through all of this experience working with others all over the world, and really having a lot of field ground research from, just working with so many different hearts and souls from all different parts of the world and backgrounds and all of that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Yeah. Let's actually, that is a perfect segue to get more into Heartrise, because I love that it's Heartrise Movement, right? It's not just a form of meditation, or it's its own movement. So its own tribe. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What makes it different from other meditations, and just tell us a little bit more about the movement and how people can get involved, actually.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. Well, I'll say first that Heartrise, quite literally, RISE stands for Radiant Integral Soul Energy. So what you're actually doing with Heartrise is you're plugging into the power, the energy, the source, the electricity of your heart. And they've actually measured that power as great enough and powerful enough to light up a small city. So if you can imagine, the electromagnetic field is a force field. It's fuego, and it's an engine. And so when you plug into that, and I have studied a lot of the science as well. So never mind just the energetics, and learning a lot of the Eastern traditions and different modalities, and having studied with Marianne Williamson, Course in Miracles, I'm versed in many different traditions from east to west, as well as more formal education in Western, the communications degree that I have, and sort of that, the more traditional Western approach. What I've found is that at the core, I've always been intrigued by psychology and the mind and the way we communicate and connect with each other. And what I've found is when we only really look at the piece that really, the aspect of the brain, the mind, and really our thinking, our intellect, that there's an aspect of one-dimensionality to it. It's not as inclusive as my experience has been, where there's something more going on. There's a vibrational resonance. There's an energetic field that I've always been keenly attuned to. And so my life experience really taught me to pay attention to that. And in doing more research, both field research working with others, and then also just studying some of the science and some of the more shamanic and Eastern and healing traditions and modalities that I've also experienced and studied, I found that the energy part was the most compelling, looking at how the energy actually works and how connected we are to this field, this vibrational field. We feel vibes, we catch each other's energy, we feel each other's energy.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
It's a real thing, right? And
when
you plug into that, when you connect with it, when you can really work with it and harness it and cultivate it, it's very powerful. So for me, what I learned throughout my experience, and this is years, it's been pretty much from when I look back straight out of the womb. I was always an empath and very, intuitive and hypersensitive and very aware of other people's, sort of feelings, and just really conscious of that, super intuitive and even psychic, I would say, but which I believe we all are. But again, having this sort of connection to something greater than what I was taught and conditioned into thinking. And so that continuous uncovering and curious discovery is what really led me into Heartrise, which is this energy sort of plugging into through the heart that we can activate. And I've learned through working with others that the heart is actually the greatest source for that energy. And it's actually there is science to support that. It is our greatest electromagnetic field, much more powerful than that of the brain, which is so cool to know. Because we're so fascinated by the brain and, the mind, if you will, but there's a heart intelligence, there's an electricity of heart that is so much more than just the physiological heart that we have access to. So that's kind of the source, if you will, or the starting point for Heartrise, and it's learning how to plug into that force, that electricity, and then in so doing, once you activate it, there's a technique that I teach. It's a 4-step rhythm, and anyone can learn it. It's very intuitive. It's very organic. It's very natural. It's sort of like reigniting that rhythm, that native rhythm, that natural aliveness that we have, that electricity. And in so doing, you can repattern, repurpose, rewire the mind. So that's kind of in a nutshell how you really can recalibrate your whole sort of how you feel, your vibe. You can really sort of recenter yourself. You can rebalance yourself, and it's a really powerful way to meditate, if you will, because you're getting plugged back into flow. And I won't get into the details of how I could if you want, but that's the meditation piece. So there's a practice that's practical and it's guided and it's really beautiful once really integrated in one's life. I see radical shifts. I work with all kinds of different people, and it's beautiful to witness the shift when people come home to that native heart frequency. The last thing I'll say about that before I share about the movement is just that it's very much about learning how to move the energy through the heart, because we tend to block a lot of it, hold so much in our hearts. And that in so doing, we kind of armor our hearts, we guard our hearts, and we block the flow. So then busy mind tends to run things, right? A little chatty up there, a little noisy, a little chaotic, and we're very susceptible to that, very sort of conditioned thinking. So when you activate this and you open your heart to this electricity, this aliveness, and you move the energy, you can actually unblock a lot of the stuff that we're holding. And so it's very healing as well, never mind inspiring. So that's kind of the way the practice is. And then the movement is, once ignited, as I like to say, our radiance is contagious, like one heart on fire can ignite all those around it. So once you're like really feeling energized and inspired and activated and on purpose, it's amazing how contagious in a delicious kind of way that radiance is. We feel it. Someone lights up a room when they walk in and you feel it. You want to be around that yum sauce. And so it's that sort of, once you really activate that beautiful heart fire, that fuego, then you're purposeful, you're inspiring, you're creative, you're activated. And so that's the movement is all these beautiful hearts and souls from young to old, and people who have been moved by the Heartrise experience who are now sharing it and part of this growing community and ultimately movement, because we're doing a lot of beautiful work in the world. So, yeah.
Yes, you are. Oh my gosh, that is so fascinating. I'm trying to decide how far down the rabbit hole we want to go with, with the science. Like, me personally would be like, hold everything. Let's just keep going. But I know we have a lot of stuff we want to cover today. But just for our purposes today, I have a couple questions. Well, actually, one's a question, one's a request, maybe to point people towards more information. But I'll start with the question first. You're talking about the, vibing with the heart. We did a show a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago now, on sound healing. Is this like a similar? It's feeling like a similar vibe to me, especially when you think of almost the percussion of your heart beating. Right?
Love that question. Yeah. You're feeling the heart vibration, sister.
I'm feeling it. Right? No.
You're in it, girl. I love it.
Well, and I do sound healing. I attend a sound healing class like almost weekly. And there is something about all of us getting in sync, and I'm seeing a lot of similarities here, and you actually can feel that power. So is this similar? I know that Heartrise isn't necessarily sound.
No, but you're right on point though, love. It really is. It actually really is so connected because it's vibrational, right? So as Einstein said, and he was talk about being plugged into that energy, that source, if you will, that infinite source, which is infinite wisdom, that is intuitive wisdom, that is energy, that is the same thing as that which is sound. So he said everything is energy. So we're actually vibrational beings. So sound is one modality, one way that we pick up vibration, we pick up energy. Light is another. There's so many different ways that we feel energy, we experience energy, and sound is one of the most powerful ways that we do. So we are indeed vibrational beings. So when we're in a sound bath, for example, or we're working with sound, it's incredibly powerful how that can help to recalibrate us. So indeed, in fact, the practice, when I do the guided meditations, one of the ways in which I actually realized early on in my coaching practice that the sound piece was so powerful is my little Coco, who's anyone who knows, because I've had my podcast for years, and she, as I was mentioning to you, often makes a little cameo in the background. But when I would do my sound or my sessions, my coaching, I would do these breathing guided sort of meditations at the beginning, and I would notice she would go from extremely hyper, at the beginning, or not always, to this really relaxed, sedated, almost like doped up version when she would hear me just slowing down and guiding the breathing, and the whole tonality and frequency and energy of my voice would shift. And it would be like literally watching her suddenly just fall into this sedated kind of zen-like dopey state. And it was just this intriguing. In fact, one of my dear friends was like, we need to video this and throw it up on YouTube. It'll go viral. Because it was really funny to watch her go from like she can be a little wild one, like Tasmanian devil style, to like, and I'm exaggerating, but she could go from super hyper to like, wah, 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 wah,
super chill Coco.
Like as if she was doped out. And it was just beautiful, but it was the energy, the vibrational energy, the sound, and the heart, which are very much a field unto themselves. They dance in the same space. So to answer your question, yes, the sound piece is just as powerful, which is why if you pay attention to when we're experiencing others, someone can be saying, or two people could be saying the same thing, but we'll notice that it will be more resonant for us if we really feel the heart of what someone's saying, which comes through in the sound. It comes through in the very heart frequency, if you will. So the two are very much interconnected. So when you listen to something, it has a sound frequency that we receive. It's input we get that we don't have the mechanics of the mind to understand. We actually receive it energetically, but we feel it. So, which is why when you meet someone, they're giving you sort of vibes versus, and so they're either like, ooh, that's some good, yummy juju, I want to be around that energy. And other people, you're like, ooh, that's some toxic funk, stay away, right? Right. You feel that energy, right? And the same thing with sound. Certain sounds are very calming and restorative and beautiful versus like, a siren or, chaotic sounds that can be abrasive. So sound and heart power, that energy are very much connected. And I actually do work with sound a lot, and my voice in and of itself is a channel for sound. So yes, I hope that answered your question. I could go on about it, but yes, they're very
no, it really, really did. And it just, I guess it made me think too of just like all energy is vibration. I mean, that's why Reiki works so well. It seems so well. The science part is so interesting to me because I think a lot of people sometimes feel like the kind of things we're talking about, they're almost like magical or woo, right? And they are magical in the beautiful sense of magical, but there is science behind this. There is something actually happening. It's not just, it's
not just all dreamy woo. And the beauty is, and what I love doing, because I bring Heartrise into corporate environments, and, I work with engineers, or I'll work with very corporate sort of, business types, or even science types. I've worked with medical doctors, and it's just beautiful to witness when in the presence of a genuine, authentic expression. It helps to have the supporting science, which I will throw down in those kind of contexts where people are more intellectual and want the science to support. What actually happens is, and as we all can pay attention and notice, if we really do witness this in our own lives, when someone is coming from an authentic, genuine place, we're much more inclined to trust and to engage and to connect with what is being said, because you can feel a level of integrity, again, in the energy. So despite that our mind wants to, our reasoning mind, our rational mind wants the legitimate science, which is there to support it, even more compelling is our own inherent sensibility of energy that we can start to practice to trust. So I always love when people make that shift and they're like, oh yeah, I actually do have a sense of energy, once they get how they can engage it themselves and learn to trust it themselves. So that to me is also very exciting. Once they can, that everybody can really learn to trust their own gauge, if you will, because we're never really taught how to work with energy. It does seem woo-woo because we're not taught to trust it or to listen to it. It's our primary sort of intuitive sensibility, and yet we're not taught how to trust it or even, harness it. So yeah, but the science does help to kind of get the intellect down with the program, and then once you get into it, you really learn to engage it, and it's a more even powerful experience than just getting it intellectually, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And it just makes me wonder where along the line, I know we could go down this rabbit hole too. There's so many rabbit holes.
Hey, darling.
I know, this will be part 75 of my interview with Jessie May. No, but I'm just thinking, like, where along the line in our evolution as human beings did we drop away from this sense, and it seems like it unlocks our most powerful side, our untapped potential, yet it's the one that's been covered up the most, and that we're the most skeptical of, which is why,
Yeah, well, I think what you just said, cover up, is key. Because, and again, I could fully go into a whole workshop / retreat on this whole theme itself, because it's such a powerful one. Totally. But it's the very shutting down of our inherent wisdom, or heart wisdom, as I call it, which is flow, which is part of the practice I teach with Heartrise, this 4-step rhythm, which helps people harness it and learn how to utilize it. It's a simple process that kind of brings back the engine of that energetic force that we all have. But we get shut down from a very young age. It's, children should be seen and not heard, and we're just taught to shut it down. And the reason I believe, and I won't get into the full kind of, structural implications, if you will, but if you just even look at religion or any doctrine that teaches us to subscribe to something, is in essence teaching us to shut down our native sensibility and to listen to whatever said thing to subscribe to is.
Right.
And so that covering up aspect, what it's really teaching us to do is to shut down our native sensibility and to listen to the outside source. So we learn to be so dependent on, even if you think about things like validation and, being accepted and, all of those things that we get so messed up over, because we're so, our worthiness is so embedded in that being liked, if you will. I mean, look at social media in and of itself. But, from a historical standpoint, back in the day, it's everywhere, where we've been so, it's really the conditioning that the powers that be have had over us throughout the years that kept us from really learning how to acknowledge and activate. Because once we activate it, we're powerful. And what's so beautiful is that it has an inherent moral compass. That's why I love this practice so much, because I don't teach anyone that I am the guru. It's no, you are your guru, and you have that innate, infinite source of wisdom within you. And once you learn how to trust it, harness it, and strengthen it, you're all powerful. And the beauty is that it's got an integrity that is its natural rule, because it wants for the best for all. It's a cooperative sensibility. So it's a beautiful source. It's just that the powers that be have always tried to keep it suppressed, therefore they can sort of be in. So I hope that answers it. I mean, again, I could go on, but
yeah, no, message received. I totally get it. And that does make a lot of sense, because it is much easier, I guess, to govern a bunch of people,
exactly.
to keep large tribes in line.
Controlled, yes.
Yes, exactly. Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. All right. Okay, so we will sidebar that for now, maybe to be continued one day. But before we move into our main topic, I would love to, we touched on a lot right now, and I think I mean, I'm fascinated by it, so I automatically assume other people might be too. But
Mhm.
are there any sources or resources that you could give to people that want to learn more about the science part of this, like maybe some books or something that you could point towards? Is there anything?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I am trained with Heart Math Institute, which is a research institute that has a lot of the science that you can actually learn more about. So it's fascinating to check out their resources. So you can look that up online, Heart Math.
Okay.
And as far as the science that I've drawn or that I draw from in my, my practice itself, it's largely based on a lot of the science that they have that supports what I've found through my field research working with others. So it's just beautiful to know that that's available as well. There's so many incredible there are many different books. I would encourage you to come and check out heartrisemovement.com. I also I do a lot of writing and I have a book that's coming out. So there will be more on that as well. And if you're interested in specifically, I've got a lot of resources as well. So you can check that out. And there are so many. I mean, honestly, what I would say too is the beauty of learning about, it depends, but one of the things that's so powerful is to listen to what you're drawn to. So just by beginning the journey, you can learn as much about the heart through Rumi as you
Yes.
can through, no, it's the truth. It's
Yeah.
amazing how we have this kind of, that's not so much the science piece, but it's quite something how we start to connect dots and see how interconnected things really are. I would also say to look into, Einstein certainly did a lot of research around the heart as well. So you can look into some of his work. Greg Braden is another great resource. He's also done a lot with Heart Math. Those for the science piece, I would say. And again, there's a lot that we've got with Heartrise, and you can also reach out directly to me. I'm thrilled to connect and share more of the heart wisdom and science because it gets me super excited.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Perfect. And I will make sure we get links to where to find you, and we'll go over that again at the end of the show. But
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
these recommendations in the show notes at ladyballsradio.com. So if you're driving or, don't be
yeah.
running off the road to write these names down. We will have it all there for you. So. All right. Okay. So, and thank you so much for indulging me with that. I didn't expect to go down that road,
Oh,
but
my
it's
pleasure.
so fascinating to me. All right. Okay. So let's move into our main topic, which is keeping our heart open during hard times or during difficult times or challenging times when, and frankly, even the most open and loving of us might want to just be like, shutting
Mm,
down a little bit.
mhm.
So what can we do there? Let's run with that.
Yeah, well, it's such an important topic and theme, and it's ever so relevant right now. And I will say always, really, to keep our hearts open and healthy is so imperative in order for us to really be tuned into our truth and what's meaningful to us. So, what I'll say around that is one of the ways that we can really learn to connect with our hearts, even just first and foremost, because most people are so disconnected, and especially when times get tough as they are, it can feel much more comfortable because we're just practiced in that, even though it is a discomfort of sorts. It's that comfortably numb, if you will, to sort of shut down or to not really let the fullness of our feelings be expressed. So things like sadness or mourning or deep grief or fear can end up manifesting more so as hardening our hearts or shutting down our hearts, or even anger, and it can become a little more eruptive, if you will, and it can sort of take on a little bit more of a hard-edged heart, which can um, have a more abrasive way, as opposed to the softening into, which I really believe is the way to move through the energy of the heart. And it's to allow, and it's not to say to not feel the anger and the sadness and the fear and the deep even, inherent frustration and sadness, all of the feelings that come up, it's important that we feel through in order to heal through. And so that's such an important part. It's an alchemy of heart. That's what we actually do. The practice of Heartrise is really an alchemy. And it's letting the feelings be felt so that we can actually move through them. Emotion is energy in motion. So we want to move the emotions through in order to open and soften the heart, to allow the heart to breathe, so that in the heart of pain, we can stay soft, we can stay open, we can be malleable, and we can be accepting and flexible and receptive, because that's how we get to stay connected too. Because if we harden our hearts and we armor our hearts, then we actually become much more susceptible to all of those things that we feel are wrong or that are upsetting or that are painful and challenging. So in these tense times, the temptation to shut down or to be angry sometimes feels safer somehow, but to instead allow ourselves to really go into the feelings and feel them through, allowing ourselves to be vulnerable enough so that we can then really move the energy to then be in a place where we can feel inspired to act, as opposed to just shutting down and being in our discontent and unresolved space.
Right. And plus, not to mention, like you were touching on earlier, it's not healthy to shut down physically for us.
Right.
Which makes us even less effective because...
Yeah, it literally makes us sick. When we hold on to our resentments or our anger, it literally does make us quite physically sick. So physically sick, it makes the mind sick, and it's injurious both to ourselves and to others, And so what ends up happening, sadly, a lot of the time is situations arise, as the climate right now is triggering so many of us. And it can just instead, we can sort of pick it up and hold, and then it can just build and spiral into this toxicity that we then become very much a victim of, rather than an active contributor to the solution. We can sort of get stuck in that low, it's again, to talk about the energy of it, it's a low frequency, low vibration. We can get stuck there if we're not careful to move the energy. So I actually like to say it's using that energy to refuel that heart fire, to activate. That's how when we work with Heartrise, there's a practice in actually reutilizing. It's the same energy, it just gets contracted and blocked. But when you learn how to metabolize it, to move the energy, you can repurpose it so that it can become something useful and open, and staying open to that flow, to that inspired energy instead.
Yes, metabolizing it. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I get, like, we need to feel these feelings. Just shoving them down is only going to shut everything down, and that doesn't help anything. Do you have any concrete tips, just maybe a couple things that people could do to metabolize these feelings? Because I would imagine, I'm certainly not the expert in this, like you are for sure, but I think it would be easy also when we're feeling anger or frustration or fear, overwhelm, that it's easy. Okay, there's a balance then of like feeling that and processing it, or getting stuck there and increasing it and making it even worse. So what are some ways we can metabolize that to turn it into positive action, but we're still acknowledging the feeling, but we're not getting stuck there and blowing it into an even bigger problem?
Right.
If that makes
Exactly.
sense. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautifully reflected on. And it actually really, in essence, the kind of framework you describe is very much of the alchemy, the steps that we practice in Heartrise itself, because there are 4 steps. So without getting too into them, the first step really is to see or to witness. So that, in essence, is what we're doing if a situation triggers us, we see it, we recognize it. So just by seeing and recognizing, as with any meditation practice, we want to be able to witness so that we don't attach to. Because if we're not able to separate ourselves from whatever said thing is, then we're much more susceptible to it. We're stuck in it. We're in it, right? We're attached to it, and we're subscribing to it. And we can't differentiate that from our experience, right? So it's just what we're sort of, our perspective is completely sort of fused with that. So when we take a step back, have a bit of an aerial view, we can witness it. So seeing is the first step, witnessing. And we do this with heart vision. So when in the practice, we actually plug into the heart, there's tools to do that. I would encourage for anyone who's interested to either come to a session if you're in LA, or we're actually going to be offering one on your site, which we'll talk about. I'm super excited about. But so you can get more into the practice if you're curious. But there are tools to do that. What I would suggest if you're wanting to try is just by simply even by bringing your hand to your heart and feeling for your heartbeat and plugging into literally, as you spoke of so beautifully, the sound piece, but really feeling and listening for your heartbeat and actually just giving yourself the space to breathe with and connect with your heart. And there's a rhythm and there's a resonance there. So you want to see and bring forth what's present or what's triggered you, witness it, and then breathe with that. And I'm just sort of simplifying it, keeping it brief here, but we go a little bit deeper in the practice itself. So you're seeing, the second step is you're breathing and you're feeling what's there with focus. So you're really kind of anchoring and focusing, bringing your attention and energy to that heart where the feelings are concentrated the most. You may experience them in different parts of your body, sometimes in your gut and sometimes in a certain body part where we hold it. But the core generator of those feelings is the heart. It's kind of like the concentrated place where the feelings will emanate from, and then they can, we can experience them all over. But it's just sense, so it's seeing what's there, feeling what's there. And as you identified, which is really important, it's not that we want to sit in the feeling. This is the key piece, and this is sort of where the alchemy happens. It's then to release, it's to free. And this takes some practice, but once we learn to really work with and harness and activate and move through and really allow the energy to move through the heart, it's kind of like working a muscle. You really get to strengthen it. And I see it. I witness these miracles every day with our regular heart risers. It's kind of amazing to see how you can learn to have that metabolism work, the heart metabolism. So you see, you feel, and the third step is you free. So you're letting go. We're working with breath. There's techniques that I teach that you learn how to release. You're working with the heart's power, and you're letting go. So you're freeing, you're liberating, you're opening, and you're actually alchemizing. I reference a heart fire. So if you can envision how things get moved through, or alchemy itself, metals turn to gold and such. So you think of something being transformed by the alchemy, the power of your heart. So you're seeing, you're breathing, you're feeling what's there, and you're letting it go so that it's not, so you're actually transforming it. There's an alchemy happening. So something like fear or sadness, as you're breathing, as you're working with the energy, you're letting it go and you're transforming it ultimately. You're moving through it, so you're repurposing it. So instead of holding it and contracting, you're feeling it, so you're letting it breathe, you're letting it be witnessed, you're letting it be experienced, and you're letting it then go. And then the fourth step is flow. And we've all had that experience of flow where you're just having a day where, that song comes on and then the sun comes out and that person calls. And so there's a state that's called flow. That's when you feel a vibrational resonance where you're feeling it. You're feeling groovy.
Yeah.
You're feeling good. And so we can move the energy and start to cultivate flow. And you can sense days where you're in flow and days when you're not, and moments and situations where you are and when you're not. And the more you practice learning how to be sensitive and connected to that energy and your heart's power, if you will, then you can know when you're off or you're on, when you're connected to it versus not. And so to come back to that sort of how to move through it, you want to make sure you're not holding it. Like you'll know when you're holding a feeling or you're trapping or you're stuck in it because you'll feel off. You'll feel tense or you'll feel that, you'll feel a little bit sort of uncomfortable. Does that sort of answer?
Yeah, no, it totally does. So the more we can train ourselves to go through the first three steps, the seeing, the witnessing, the feeling, and the freeing, the more we can be in the flow.
That's right.
Which is like kind of the big old juicy prize at the end of it all.
And then to come back to that sort of sound piece you spoke about, when you're beginning the practice, it helps because it's guided. So you get this beautiful, I work with sound. So all of my sessions have sound, whether I work with live, beautiful sound healers, I do some of my own sounding. with instruments and such, and or I have different beautiful tracks. So it's always accompanied, and then my voice drops into a very resonant field. So you're being guided in this very gentle breathing flow, so that once you get into flow, which is the fourth stage, and you go through a few cycles, the more you practice, the more natural it feels. And then you start to condition the heart. So you reach a point once you practice regularly where you can literally, a situation triggers you and you can work with breath to just move through it rather than letting it sort of stall you or make you get stuck in your, whatever it is.
Sure. Right. Oh my goodness, so much good stuff. I'm so excited. So I think it's important though, because I mean, times like these, we keep dancing around it, but I mean, there can be a lot of different things going on in people's lives, and they end up feeling, whether it's angry, anxious, upset. I think it all comes back to, it's easy to feel powerless. Especially when so many of the things making us feel angry and anxious are out of our direct control. So this is beautiful to bring it back and give us our power back, right?
Very much so. And the beauty in this practice and really in just recognizing the heart power that lives in us all is that we are so infinitely powerful when we're plugged into our hearts. And it's not about the kind of power that we've been conditioned to revere. It's actually a greater power that ultimately does connect us all. And when we're in that, it's really incredible to witness. I mean, I've been doing a lot of Heartrise sessions lately, and it's been beautiful. I mean, here in LA, and just witnessing how powerful the field is. I mean, we have full houses that come, men and women, and just to feel the field that we create just through experiencing it together. And at the end, just to see and to feel how much, people will come in really heavy-hearted or stressed, and then to witness how they feel after a session once we're all feeling that connectedness. And really, literally, it's an energetic field that we create, that we co-create, and to be in that aliveness does really feel empowered in a much more authentic way rather than the kind of like, I will control this situation, because that's how we've been taught to think of power.
Right.
But it actually empowers us to be more trusting that there is a greater unfolding, that we're actually capable when we do come together, in that sort of powerful source. I want to just share actually a little mini story from this weekend because it was so touching.
Yeah, please, for sure, do it.
It's in the spirit of what we're talking about, and it just goes to show how powerful this heart energy is, if you will. And it's we were doing a big event for Standing Rock, and it was a fundraiser, beautiful event I was part of. And I was facilitating a Heartrise meditation and ceremony on the beach, and we had some beautiful elders who came from Dakota, and like they were there they had come from Standing Rock, and the chief of the Sundance tribe was there, and he was beautiful, and just amazing to hear him share. And he was super moved by the whole Heartrise experience too. And he came up to me after when I gave him a big hug, and he looked at me and he said, "That is heart power." And it was so beautiful to feel that reflection from him, who's so connected to the earth and the elements. And then on the other side of that, and I'm just sharing this to show just how powerful this field is and how much greater it is than the kind of power we've been taught to kind of think of as important power, and how powerful we are when we all plug into that. Is the on the other side was a young girl that was there, little, and when I say young, I'm talking 2-year-old, who was also part of the experience. And she was there, and I could feel her just responding and feeling the energy. And she would be, I'd catch her gazing at me, and, as I would be doing the Heartrise meditation and some of the sounding, and I had a drum, and she was just, captive. She was feeling it again, had no idea what I was saying, but she was just feeling, right? She was feeling the energy. And funny enough, Chief Iron Eagle has no hearing either, but he would smile at me because he was feeling it too. So he had no clue what I was saying, but it was the energy again. So talk about the field, the heart. And she, at the end of the session, I looked at her and I smiled at her and I opened my arms, and that's all I had to do. And that was just my heart. It was not like planned. I just was inspired in that moment of connection with her, heart to heart, to open my arms, and she ran into my arms, and I just held this sweet little soul in my arms, and I rocked her for like 5 minutes. And that was just, I was guided to do that. That wasn't a plan. That just, I was moved in that moment to do that.
Right.
Never met this girl, nothing ever. The mom was just like, wow, I've never seen, I mean, it was really, it was a miracle. And she just like literally fell like a rag doll, like the sweetest thing, just like longing for that embrace. And I was just holding her and rocking her, and I was guided to move with her. And it was such a sweet, tender, loving moment. And it was so beautiful and so healing for us and for those around. And, you know, again, that's the power of the heart. And that's the power that we have to be guided to act in ways that are so much greater than our minds would have us think. And, you know, so much greater than the fear that would keep our minds in this small-mindedness, you know? So, yeah, I just wanted to share that because it's so much bigger than us.
No, and thank you for that. And, you know, it's interesting you were saying, you know, she's 2, she didn't understand what you were saying. He couldn't hear, you know, but they probably heard better than anyone else.
Yes.
Because they were listening with their heart and not...
To the heart, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Seriously, that is beautiful. So the moral of the story, kids, is keep your heart open. And I know so many of us, gosh, I've been there myself in the last few months of just like part of you just wants to shut down and become almost like hermit-like. Maybe it's just the cold weather for me sometimes. But I think now more than ever, it's so important to get out and, like you were saying, make those connections. If you're in LA, we'll be telling you how you can get in touch with Jessie May and go to her meditations. But now is not the time for us to be shutting down and keeping ourselves separate, for sure.
So true. And, you know, and what I'll say to that too is, you know, it's also really easy to get caught in the sort of the judgments and, you know, to get caught in our thinking mind, if you will, you know, to sort of get into the analytics of, you know, our perception of what's happening and all of that, which can be, of course, very jarring, you know, you know, the bigger piece though is that when we connect with each other, quite literally, when we allow ourselves to have compassion, even if we don't agree, you know, I love one piece of so much wisdom that Martin Luther King shared was that we do have to love each other. We don't have to like each other. You know, we do, like the call to love everyone is so powerful, and we don't necessarily have to like everyone. So, meaning that we don't really have to agree with everyone's sort of opinions and judgments and all of that stuff. You know, we get so caught up in the head trip of it all. But when we drop into this inherent connectedness that lives at the heart of who we are, beyond, you know, our perceptions and whatnot, there's this core that we share that is so much greater and so much more powerful, and we can let ourselves drop in and to have that compassion at the very sort of source of who we are, at the heart of who we are. We can really remember to really love in a bigger way. There's such a strong call to love right now. And the temptation to go into the fear is there. And that's that temptation to shut the heart down. But instead, when we, you know, reach out and connect, and that's so important, as you had, you know, you'd mentioned not to isolate or to withdraw, but instead to reach out. And one of my favorite ways, and I just want to share this because I actually just posted about it today, but anyone who's a regular Heartriser knows this, but I love to give hugs, and I really believe in the power of hugs. And I'm not just talking like, you know, a little sort of quick, fun, sort of like half hug. I'm talking really holding someone, giving them a good hug. They've actually shown that, I think they say 20 seconds of holding, you know, real hug. And I'm talking like really letting someone feel held as so powerful as a tool to quite literally let someone feel loved, because we all need that sense of connection. And it's so much greater often without words, because words can do a lot more damage sometimes than necessary, you know, and when we just, when we can just be with each other and literally hold each other's hearts and be in that space, which is what we're so all deeply yearning for right now. Really just such an important piece. So yeah, I just wanted to offer the hug piece, and I will say too, and this is just actually a little bit of science for you all, is that if you want to really get your hug on, what I encourage is hugging on the left side. we tend to go in and hug right shoulder to right. Notice that next time you go in for a hug.
Interesting.
And yeah, and we're actually guarding our hearts. So the energy field isn't as powerful when you hug that way. So we've been, again, conditioned that way to protect. And protect meaning like not allow the full sort of surrender of that connection. But when you open your heart and hug on the left, and I encourage you to check it out, try it on, or come to a session because we get Hug Fest happening at the end. It's so much fun. And you hug left to left, there's just a stronger resonant field. Initially, it might feel a little disorienting, but it's actually a really yummy way to give a cozy, big old hug. So, yeah, just a little tip.
Yeah, I love that bonus tip. I never would have even thought of that. And now I'm thinking in my head, yeah, like I go into hug on the right hand. I mean, I would probably like bump, you probably, it's a little awkward a few times. Like, sorry, did I take your shoulder out?
A little heads up because, yeah, otherwise you can be in like a makeout situation, which has happened. It's
like, no, seriously. I listened to this podcast and
exactly.
We're just like, oh, that was awkward. Okay. Okay, you've been warned. So, oh my goodness, I love that. Well, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it without making out with the poor unsuspecting huggy when that happens. So, we could keep going, but you know what? Gosh, I can't believe we've been talking for 50 minutes. We're going on an hour. I've got a few more questions, just some fun stuff to kind of wrap things up. Let's take a quick break, and then we will be back for some last words. Not last words forever, but just last words for today. We'll be right back. Badass Girls Unite. Want to be part of our inner circle? Head on over to ladyballsradio.com where you can join our VIP mailing list, check out the show notes for each episode, and access free bonus content. You can also head on over to our Facebook page, Lady Balls Radio, to join in the discussion, get updates on your favorite guests, and hear who's going to be on the show next. Okay, we are heading back to the show. All right, welcome back. We are here with Jessie May Wolfe, and I want you all to take on the hug challenge that she gave us as we were right before we went into the break. So that's your homework for this week. But we've got a few more questions here. I like to do this little, I don't know, I have a different name for it all the time. It's like lightning round, speed round, but it's just like a series of fun questions. Just to get to know our guests a little bit more and have some fun. So we're going to go into that, and then we'll go towards wrapping things up and let people know where they can find you. So are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready, girl. Bring it on.
All right. Okay. We've been talking so much about spiritual woo-woo things, right? No, just kidding. It's not woo-woo. It's science. So what is, I should rephrase.
Little woo-woo, little science and spirit,
I know. I should rephrase the question. Like, what's your science spirit animal? No. What is your scientifically assigned? No. What is your spirit animal? What do you think your spirit animal is?
It's funny. I've worked with different shaman, and I've been told what my spirit animal is. And, I've had a few different animals along the way, and I resonate deeply with several. But I would say right now, and it's funny because my last name is Wolf, but I'm really feeling the wolf as my spirit animal, particularly right now. There's this sort of the nature of a wolf. I mean, we've been sort of conditioned to think that they're, dangerous and all these things, but they're actually protectors, and they're pack animals and pack leaders. And I feel very drawn to that, the spirit of that, and they're loving, tender animals. And I'm just really feeling that deep call to love and to protection. And, there's sort of a heroic nature to them. So I feel very drawn to the wolf. The other one I would say, which often is my spirit animal, is the horse, which is, I'm full on Sagittarius. So I've got a little bit of, the sort of archer spirit in there, and the freedom of horses and that sort of wild, free spirit. So I would say, without getting into a full on, animal kingdom run through, those are my two primaries.
That is so cool. And what's funny? I just realized I looked down while you were talking about that. I'm wearing a shirt right now that says part wolf. That's
Ooh,
like what the shirt says. So are we
girl,
in sync? Like,
yeah.
what? Oh, yeah. No, I
I,
totally relate to that. But that's beautiful. I love what you said, you know, because we do think of wolves as being like fierce and dangerous. But I love the loving part and the protector and yeah, that's such a beautiful way to look at it. So never look at wolves the same way again.
hmm.
Mm. Um, okay. And I love this one. I don't know. Somebody's like, did you make this up? And yes, it is truth that I did, but I think it's powerful because people always seem to relate to it. What's your spirit vegetable?
Ooh, I love. I would have to say that's an interesting one. I'm gonna drop in with a little duo on this too. I
Okay.
would say probably broccoli would be my my main jam on that. I
Yeah.
love First of all, I just love straight up. I love broccoli, but I also love that it represents a tree and that sort of the fullness. And there's the sort of there's an abundance to it. It's got that real kind of a fullness and a growth and sort of the symbiosis of a tree and that sort of the branches and the florets and the growth and the sort of the mirroring of what a tree represents. So I think for that reason, I would probably say broccoli. And then the other one I would probably say is a little jalapeno.
Ooh.
It's a little spicy, because I got some
Yeah.
spirit spicy. People, what people love most about Heartrise, I will say, and they've, people who practice different modalities of meditation will drop into my session. What they always say is they love that they can come and they just feel an ease and a grace and a comfort and whether I'm throwing it down with inner city kids or YPO, a group of men, corporate CEO types, or it doesn't matter. There's a heart that connects us, and it's that, the really being real and truthful and spicy and raw. And so there's that, I guess, that sort of jalapeno spice in the mix that I feel is part of my spirit and, I suppose my spirit vegetable, if you will. So there you go.
Yeah. I
That's
love, and do you love jalapenos too?
I
Like,
love bring on the spice. Oh yes, it's totally yes, all about it.
I hear you. I'm actually on a habanero kick right now, but because I just love the little,
Okay.
yeah. Now we're moving into like cooking tips, but no.
We could go down there too. Another show.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I love it. Jalapeno. I've never had that one before. I mean, I've not had that answer, so I love it. I love it. Okay, moving forward, what is alternate universe Jessie May doing right now?
Ooh, I would say she is holding, really radiant. Like I would say there's a bathing in sort of radiance aspect. Like I always feel that there's a part of me that is holding that loving field, So
Mm-hmm.
it's this, it's the spirit of who I am. It's the heart of who I am. So I would say, she's like dancing and bathing in sunshine somewhere, holding that loving field, like just in it and radiating there, just reminding me that I can always come home to it and just to be in that space. So that's, it's the mirror, of my being. And, this being here can be sometimes in the funk because it's easy to get caught in that, but I can always
Mm-hmm.
dip back in and move back into that radiant integral soul energy. So
Love
she's,
it.
she's dancing on sunshine out there.
Oh yeah, and just like connecting right back to the source.
That's
I
right.
love that. Now I got that song in my head, the Dancing
Uh-huh.
in Sunshine song. Okay, and maybe we've already answered this because we were talking about like you've kind of like pretty much had this jam since you were born. But little 6-year-old you, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, it was definitely a combo. I mean, I loved, funny that we're talking about the dancing piece, but like I was a little dancing queen. So I used to love dancing, I mean, bring it on from, Motown to, Michael Jackson, Madonna. Like, so there was definitely a performer in me somewhere. And then
Mm-hmm.
the other part I would say is I was very creative. So I was like obsessed with, my mom used to have all the Vogue. So I did have a creative designer in me. So there was a little bit of that. the sort of like performer, connector, love people, and then the creating component, and a little bit of a magician sort of experimenter too. I used to have this magic set and I'd always be making potions and stirring and concocting. So I suppose, the very expression of Heartrise and who I am and how I share, because it is more almost like of an experience, if you will, when people come to my sessions. It's got a little bit of all of that in the mix. So, my childhood imagination was maybe a little more kind of wild, but it's definitely, I would say, there was some premonition there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I say you brought it over. Do you still do magic shows? Maybe we need to.
Well, I mean, you'll have to come to a Heartrise experience now, won't you, and find out.
I know. I'm intrigued. I'm even more intrigued.
They're pretty magical, darling. I call it getting high on heart, and it's legit. I mean, you leave there, people feel super activated after a session. It's, it's really amazing. Yeah, they'll come in feeling one way, and then they'll leave feeling really energized, really activated. So yeah, there's a lot of magic to it, I will say.
Transformational. Oh my gosh. All right. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, we say yum at the end of my sessions. All of my crew know we do a big yum, like we roar a yum. So I was just going to say yum.
You roar a yum.
We do a whole collective yum. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Oh my gosh. That is the best. I love it. Okay, one more. A woman who has inspired you greatly in your work or in your life in general.
So many.
Yeah, you can have two here. You've kind of been doing two, so
I know. Can we do? Wow, that's tough to say too. One of my faves, I would say Jane Goodall,
yes.
who I just adore. I adore her connection with the earth and, and the apes, and just going into nature and just having that draw to just really go and study and be a part of, sort of understanding how connected we are to, the animal kingdom and all of that. So she's really just such a raw, natural force in the world. And I really, such a kind, kindred spirit, someone who I really, really respect and admire. And there's ones who are closer to me who I've worked with, so I don't know if I would necessarily say them per se, but I'm tempted to, because I just adore her and she's a firecracker. She is a friend and also a mentor and teacher to me. I'd probably have to say her. Marianne Williamson, who I just adore. She's, so dynamic and so fierce with her passion and her her truth. And she's just been such an inspiration to me, both directly and as a teacher, as a friend, as a mentor, huge supporter. She is of Heartrise and what I do. And she's just been integral. I could say so many others. Gloria Steinem, don't get me started. Anyway, the legacy, many. Maya Angelou, one of my favorites. Several. So, but it's the time for us. Women are rising. And I am so proud and inspired to be part of that.
Right there with you, sister. I mean, that is the main reason I started this podcast, is to celebrate that and to encourage other women to let their lights shine. And this is not the time to be sitting back and just waiting to see how things pan out. I mean, we're capable of so much, so we need to be supporting each other. So that's why we're here.
Sister. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I know. I could go on forever too with names, but this is like, I love those. Are all so great. So great. I can't believe we're almost at the end. It makes me kind of sad. Not sad. It doesn't really make me sad. I'm just like, I'm having so much fun. This has just been so great. And I feel like my heart has even opened more since we started talking, just with the connection. So how do we keep that going? We're going to have a special. Jessie May has been so gracious and so generous to offer a special Heartrise meditation that we're going to put on ladyballsradio.com under the exclusives section. So you guys listening can access that there and get a little taste of this for yourself. So thank you so much for that gift.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. That is so generous. And then lastly, where can people find you? I know we've got some listeners here that are in the Los Angeles area, so if you can let them know where they can connect with you locally, maybe where you're doing your Heartrise meditations, and then also people, I mean, really from all over the world, how they can stay in contact with you and keep those vibes coming.
Yes, I love it. Well, for the Angelinos and Angelinas in the house, there are several Heartrise sessions that I offer here. I do a weekly session Monday nights at the Den, a Heartrise session that's amazing at 9 o'clock every Monday. We have a full house by candlelight. It's a beautiful journey and experience and very nourishing, very inspiring, very soothing. So those are really magical. If you're able to come and join us, that's at the Den in West Hollywood. I work a lot with Soho House, both the West Hollywood and the Malibu location. I do workshops for Valentine's. We're doing an electric love workshop. Woo-hoo! It's going to be off the charts. Ignite your magnetic radiance. So bring your lover, come and find a lover, open your heart, ignite who you are. It's going to be so much fun. We're really excited about that. That's happening on Valentine's Day. And then I do intuition workshops at the Malibu location. I do a lot with Unplug as well. Heartrise pop-ups are coming. We've got some really juicy workshops happening with Unplug meditation. And I do stuff with Wanderlust. I do stuff all over town, lots of different independent events, as well as if you're interested in bringing Heartrise to your company, the newest foray with us has been really bringing Heartrise into corporate environments. So I work with everyone from Amazon to several other different companies. We're working with Sotheby's, we're working with Amobi, different tech and startup and Health Aid, Kombucha. There's so many different amazing companies that we have been working with and are setting up partnerships with. And there's so many different ways we can bring this to you, as well as if you have events and things that you want to experience Heartrise for. It just kicks off and sets the tone for an event. It's a beautiful way to ignite the space and get everyone feeling high on heart and connected and fun and activated. So those are different ways if you're here, as well as I do stuff on the East Coast too, and I travel. So if you're interested, you can reach out. The best way to do that is there's two ways. One is the jessiemay.com site, which has more of the individual opportunities. So if you wanted to, I do retreats in Tulum. We do all kinds of fun stuff and events and things. Calendar, all that's on Jessie May. That's JESSIEMAY.com. And then the Heartrise Movement, so it's like sunrise, but Heartrise Movement.com has lots more info about speaking, if you want to have speaking at an event and whatnot, all that good stuff, the corporate stuff. There's lots of other fun links and trainings happening, lots of stuff on there. Those are the main ways I would say. I've got some fun programs and things coming up too, so stay tuned. I'm going to have an Ignite Me 30-day inspiring challenge for you to get little juicy, inspiring nuggets every morning that are coming, and lots more in store. So I really hope to connect with you. Jessie May Wolfe on Instagram too. I post lots of inspiration on there, and those are the primary ways. That's a lot of different ways, and just reach on out. I'm very accessible.
Yeah, for sure. And you have, I imagine, them through one of those sites or both of the sites. Do you have a mailing list that people can sign up for so they can get updates on all these juicy things? I want the 30-day challenge.
Yeah. And maybe we'll offer a special. I mean, it's going to be really very good price, but basically they're going to be little morning sound bites that people get. Along with a little quote from me each morning, super yummy little nugget to just hit play in the morning, couple of minutes to just kind of activate your day with a little heart wisdom to set the tone. So that's going to be kicking off in March. So yeah, maybe we can do a little special for your lady ballers.
Oh, I like it. So stay tuned. Keep your eyes peeled for that. For sure.
Yeah.
All right, Jessie May. Well, gosh, we could keep going. I could keep going. But thank you so much for being here and for being so open with just all of these great nuggets and with your heart. Thank you for sharing that with the world.
Such a pleasure, sweetie. And thank you for the work that you're doing with the show. And your beautiful heart is so felt. And it's been such a treat to have this conversation with you. And I really look forward to doing more together.
Yes, definitely. Stay tuned, everyone. This won't be the last you hear of us.
Yay!
All right, everybody. Well, thank you, Jessie May. Thank you, dear listeners, as always, for being here, and we will catch you on the next show. Beloved Lady Ballers, today's episode was brought to you by Audible.com. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial for, well, maybe for one of the things that we talked about today, maybe some Rumi, maybe some Marianne Williamson. All you need to do is to go to audibletrial.com/ladyballs. They have over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Until next time, my lovelies, stay ballsy.